get that going. All right, welcome to our webinar, Supporting Your Student in a Major Change. My name's Christine Self with Parent and Family Relations, and we're excited to have all of you here today. We're fortunate to have Dr. Cathe Nutter from University Advising with us as well. This webinar is part of the Red Raider Family webinar series, where we share information on topics of interest to the families and supporters of our students. We hope this webinar will be helpful to you to support your Red Raiders if they're considering a major change or have recently changed their major. We plan to keep it to about 30 minutes or so, and if there's time at the end, we'll open it up for questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. And you can certainly add your questions using the Zoom Q&A feature at any time during our webinar. You don't have to wait till the end. So let me get my screen shared and we will go ahead and get started. All right, so just a little bit of background on this topic from my perspective working with families. I get lots of questions from families about, you know, why do students change majors and what goes into that? And so I hear a lot from families that their student discovered at some point in their career that the major just simply wasn't the right fit. Maybe they didn't know what the particular major entailed and what kinds of careers they could get with it. Maybe the classes simply didn't work out. Maybe they had some sort of pressure to go into a certain major and it wasn't right for them. So Dr. Nutter, can you talk to us about, you know, what are some of the reasons that students may change their major?
Oh, I'd be happy to. And what I'm going to say is going to start with, number one, thank you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this because it is really a big deal. If your student hasn't changed majors yet, there's a good chance they're thinking about it. The average depends on which data you read, but up to 60% of students will change majors at least twice during their academic career. And that's just their undergraduate. So changing majors happens a lot, and it happens for a variety of reasons. When a student is planning on what we call a competitive admission major, so think about at Tech, the College of Business, the Rawls College of Business, or the Whitaker College of Engineering, or biology, or physics, those majors that have advanced GPA requirements or prerequisite course requirements. Students have all of the best intentions. I'm going to become a major in this college, and the prerequisites just don't happen. They try and they try, and for whatever reason, and a variety of reasons, those prereqs just don't happen. And we don't want to continue 4 years working on prereqs to get into another 2-year academic program, right? So sometimes it's just not a good fit academically. Sometimes it's just not as interesting as what a student thought it would be. A student may start in geology thinking this is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to get to look at fossils and I'm going to get to look at all of this good kind of stuff. And, you know, I've always liked collecting rocks, and geology is not collecting rocks. So sometimes a student will pick a major based on a hobby. And when that hobby becomes work, it's just not quite the same attitude anymore. Sometimes students pick a major because somebody else thought it was a good idea for them. And that major never really was their dream, wasn't really their passion and where their interests lie, but they don't want to let somebody down. So they pick engineering because somebody well-meaning said, well, you know, you've always been good at math and science. And being good at something doesn't mean that's what you want to do all the time, right? And sometimes they just find something new. And that's probably the most exciting time when a student changes major. they find something. I didn't even know I could major in that. I didn't know that was a degree. You know, most of us, if we just stop and think about how many degrees we could name, most of us could get somewhere between 10 and 15, maybe. We could name those degrees. At Tech, we have over 150 bachelor's programs. So it's just absolutely incredible when a student begins making decisions based on information and on what they found and what they've seen. So the reason students change majors is as diverse as the student population itself. Lots of reasons.
Thank you. There's lots of concerns that families have about when their student changes a major. Some of the most common ones that I talk with families about are, my students thinking about changing their major, but is that going to cost us more? Is it going to take my student a lot more time? Thinking about the classes a student has already taken, were those a waste of my student's time? Thinking about this new major, what kind of careers can my student get with that? I didn't even know about it. And I'm, just having those kind of concerns. Also in some of those majors that Dr. Nutter mentioned, the ones that are competitive, maybe it just doesn't work out for a student, but their identity has been tied up into that major this whole time. And now that student's feeling a little bit lost. And so that idea of, now my student's not a business major anymore or an engineering major anymore. Now what? Some of those are the concerns that I hear a lot about.
Yeah, we hear a lot about those too. We talk with parents and with and the students have the same concerns. Dr. Nutter, I just don't know that engineering is exactly what I want to do, but I've been working on this since I was in the 8th grade. I don't know what else to do. I don't know who I am. So we get lots of questions about it. And I want to talk about some of those concerns parents have and students have about changing majors and maybe ways we can, as parents, help support our students while they're thinking about this and mulling it over. One of the big concerns students have when they walk into our offices and talk with us about possible major changes is they're concerned about letting you down. They're concerned that you are heavily invested in the major they have right now and that you see that major as their identity, and they're concerned with letting you down and changing options and changing plans, especially if they were attempting to meet competitive admission requirements and have not been successful in doing so, right? They're concerned about that. So having conversations about supporting who your student is and helping them find the folks to talk to on campus that who can guide them toward alternative majors or parallel majors that still lead to the same types of careers or using the same skills and leading to the same goals. They're also concerned sometimes, especially with those competitive admission requirements, that maybe they're taking the easy way out. I had a student sitting in my office a couple of years ago who was struggling to meet the GPA requirement for an engineering discipline. And not that the student didn't have a decent GPA, the student was at like a 2.7 GPA, but that wasn't what was needed for the College of Engineering. So we began talking about alternative paths, still STEM related, but what could you do? What are some parallel plans to the field of engineering this student was looking at? And we began talking about math and physics. Now, I don't know anybody who says physics is the easy way out, right? I don't know that physics is an easy degree, and I'm pretty certain none of the physics professors would agree that it is. But physics has a different GPA requirement. So it's more students meet that requirement, right? Doesn't mean it's the easy major. It just means admission to that major is not as high a GPA. doesn't mean it's the easy way out, right? And even if a student moves from a STEM discipline to something more humanities driven, I don't, we try very hard in our office. We train pretty hard to not discuss majors and classes in terms of easy or hard. Because what's easy for somebody is what they're interested in, because that's where they spend their time. That's what they're interested in doing, right? So, but students are concerned that it'll be perceived that they're taking an easier route. And the way we discuss this with them is we talk about routes that make more sense for who they are, a better fit route, not easy or hard. So that might be some terminology that helps out with that too. And then as Chris, as you mentioned, um, many times, especially if a student waits until end of their sophomore year, beginning of their junior year to change majors, and all of their friends are in that old major. That's where their friend group is. That's where their social group is. They've been in student organizations related to that major, perhaps. Is that going to matter? So being able to talk with students about social groups and how to maintain those, even if you change classes that everybody's in, right? So those are really good questions and really big concerns that they have about that one too. And then I have students who are really concerned about making a choice because they're afraid a better choice may come along later. Right? I think this major sounds absolutely wonderful, Dr. Nutter. It has everything I'm interested in. It fits all of my goals. It uses my strengths. But I'm afraid if I pick it, I'll find something I wish I had done later. So that we call it analysis paralysis. We get so concerned about finding other answers that we don't give ourselves permission to make a choice, right? So at that point, we begin talking about micro-credentialing. We begin talking about certificates. We begin talking about ways to maybe add a minor or something of that nature that doesn't change the major, but still allows us to make decisions and to move forward, right? Something better may come along. And that's great when it does. And there's no reason why you can't also work with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a degree. It can be a micro-credential, it can be a minor, it can be a certificate, or it can just be a hobby for the time being. So those are some of the major concerns that we hear about.
So along with that concern about, making sure my student is going to be able to get a job that's a good fit for them, a career that's a good fit for them, ways to use their strengths and their skills. Can you talk us through some of these resources to help students make decisions about their major?
Oh, definitely. I would love to. Um, you know, Chris, you and I are in higher ed. We love education for education's sake. Um, but that's not what a bachelor's degree is about, right? We know every student is enrolled in a bachelor's program with the anticipation that this program will help them secure a really nice job when they graduate. And while not every major, not every job has a specific major that makes sense for it, you do want to know what skills am I learning? What job opportunities am I going to have in this particular area with this particular major, right? I have a degree, my bachelor's degree is in English because I really like literature and I'm a grammar nerd, right? I like all of that stuff. And I did teach for a while, but there are jobs with English as a major outside of K-12 education also. Um, I worked as an editor for one of the big five accounting firms for a long time in Dallas. So one of my favorite tools that we help students use is the Texas Reality Check. This is I found it from off of the Texas Workforce Commission website. I like this a lot. In the Texas Reality Check, a student can Anybody can. So parents, you can too if you're thinking about options and want to see what things look like. It is a Texas reality check. So when it pops up, a student can pick an occupation and see what occupations are paying in particular cities, right? The same job in different cities in the state of Texas, we know have different salaries attached to them. So students can look at this. But one of my favorite tools, the reality check part, comes from lifestyle and what it really costs you to live in a particular city with a particular lifestyle. And the reality check has them think about, what's your entertainment look like? Are you going to have cable? Are you going to do streaming services? Are you going to go to the movies once a week? What do you need as far as food and clothing? And what kind of car are you going to drive? And is that already paid for? And where do you want to live? And so it shows them what they need to make realistically to live in a particular area with a particular lifestyle. And then the occupation check shows them what occupations pay that particular salary in that particular city. So it gets to be a lot of fun. I use it in my freshman seminar classes and I use it in my academic skills classes because I think it is a very good, honest, open, transparent view of what it takes to live after you finish your degree. It's got cost of living, it has professions, it has salaries. It also has outlooks on salaries. So is this a field that's growing? Is this a field that is green and will continue to thrive in the state of Texas, given all of the political and environmental situations going on, right? So it's one of my favorite websites. Another website I like quite a bit that I also found off of the Texas Workforce Commission site is called My Next Move. And in My Next Move, students can also still go look at all of these careers in different cities and places of that nature. One of my favorite aspects of My Next Move, they have excellent interest assessments and strength assessments that help a student narrow down, if not a specific career field, an industry, an interest area, something of that nature that I find really exciting. My Next Move also, though, has videos on all of these different careers. 2-minute, no longer than 2-minute videos. Most of them are about 1 minute, 37 seconds, but they really do identify what it takes to succeed in a career field and what that career field does. And gives a very nice overview. Like I said, about 1.5 minutes. I played the one for electrical engineering for my husband, who is an associate professor in our electrical engineering department. And he's like, yeah, that nailed it. It's really good and pretty accurate. So it's a really good area and good website. Probably my favorite website is the Texas Tech Career Center, because there are assessments on that page very similar to the My Next Move assessments. But these interest assessments on our Career Center website also link to majors at Texas Tech. So if a student comes up with their interest inventory, their interest assessment, they can click the next box and it shows all of the majors associated with those career areas, and just tons of information about what you can do, right? How do you become a CPA? But also, I want to be a business manager. I want to be an entrepreneur. What are the majors related to that? And it's more than just major in management in the College of Business. There are tons and tons of opportunities and ideas. So the Career Center website and those assessments, some of my absolute favorite. The Focus to Career assessment is my favorite because it's got all of those links to majors at Texas Tech.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to share Dr. Nutter's contact information and how you can reach out. I will send an email with this recording and all of those links to you. So if you didn't get a chance to investigate those sites while we were talking, I'll send them right to you, so you don't have to worry about that. But we would love for you to put your questions in the Q&A of Zoom, just so that we can answer those for you. So while you're thinking of your questions, when you register for this webinar, we asked registrants what do they want to learn. And some of the questions or some of the things that you all had typed in there that you wanted to learn were brought up some really interesting topics. So one of the ones that I saw in there that I'd like to ask Dr. Nutter to address is really just bottom line, how late is too late to change a major?
If you've ordered graduation announcements, let's don't do this, right? And that's really easy, and I don't mean to make that trite. Depending on the student, I think we've got options and opportunities up through middle of their junior year, especially if they're working on a major and a minor and they're interested in maybe a flip or something similar. It really does depend on the student and on the situation. My suggestion, every time I have a student come in and say, hey, look, I get it. I'm a junior, but I don't know that I want to finish this major. They come in and they talk with us, and we run through DegreeWorks, and all of your students have access to this. It's a degree audit, but students can run what's called a what if audit. What if I change my major? What would it look like, and how many classes do I still have left? So we talk them through this, being very transparent, very realistic about what all of this looks like. I helped a student who was a senior change majors last semester, and she's still going to graduate in a month or in 2 months. She's still graduating in May. So it really depends on the student situation and what's going on. The biggest, and this leads, Chris, to another question we had that you and I were talking about earlier. How do I know if my student's struggling? If a student's really having difficulty in a major, whether that's academic or interest, just not interested in these classes anymore, that's a key indicator we need to talk about options. So whether that is their first semester in school or their sixth semester in school, we need to chat, we need to talk. Later, junior, senior, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to talk them through plans that don't include changing a major if at all possible, right? What kind of strategies can we put forward? What do we need to look at? But we're going to look through options and be really transparent about what is the best course of action based on goals and needs, and obviously cost and things of this nature. We don't want a student changing majors if it means the last 45 hours of credit they've taken won't apply. That's just crazy, right? That's a lot of work to not have credit for. So being open, being honest, being transparent, and looking at realities and other options. Sometimes it doesn't take a major change. It just takes a change in focus on what you're going to do with the major afterwards. Sometimes that's the big question students have, isn't, do I need to change my major, but I don't know what to do with this. So our office partners very well and very deliberately with the Career Center as well, helping students find those options and find that pathway through what they're looking for. Does that help?
Wonderful. Well, speaking of getting in touch, if you need to have some of those conversations with Dr. Nutter, or if you want to talk with us here at Parent and Family Relations about some of these issues, I've put our email addresses up there. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Dr. Nutter, for sharing this information. I think this is going to be really great to help families
My pleasure.
work through those concerns that they have when their students are changing majors, and some great resources to encourage your student to look at. And we will make this recording available on our website so that you can, again, review it again later. I'll send out the link a little bit later today. So
And please
joining us.
email us, definitely email us and ask questions.
Absolutely. All right, well, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day and a great week.
Bye.